We've explored the area. Now we're off to Adawan Bridge. That should just take a few hours to the west.
Some fermented caribou milk would hit the spot right now.
Maybe we'll find some of that inside Defiance Bay. Adameth Rirt. Wow, this bridge looks like it's fully intact. Shouldn't have any problems here. Hello? If you need an inn for the night, Goose and Fox has the softest beds and the best ale. That sounds good to me. An attractive female. Business around here took a hit when Stalwart's mines dried up. You can imagine these braziers being lit at night. Hello. Welcome to Defiance Bay, but watch yourself in the city, understand? What is it? I'm looking for the Temple of Wodica. Huh? If you say so. It's in First Fires, just west of Crucible Keep. Crucible Keep. This place is all new to me. I guess we have to go to Copper Lane first. Won't take long to get over there, either.
Bay. The city at the heart of the Dyrwood's revolution now seems on the brink of another. Refugees line the streets, homeless and hungry, displaced by Whiteone's legacy, hoping for relief within the city walls, and finding none. Dissidents congregate to protest and to heckle, calling for an end to animancy and the ouster of their duke. The city's militiamen cast fearful looks as they patrol the streets, their hands trembling at the hilts of their weapons. The capital of a country that had not long ago incinerated a god now appears to be a spark away from sharing the deity's fate.
So, this is the capital of the Dyrwood. Honestly say I've never been here in my life. I don't know much about it. I'm just learning about the people of Dyrwood, the people who killed my father, my real father. Hail, commoner. Have you been to the expedition hall yet? You might find your type of work there. What kind of work is that exactly?
Those walls surround the whole city?
These animancers have brought divine wrath upon us all. And yet the Duke and his toadies and the Crucible Knights do nothing. It's like can we allow these atrocities to continue unchecked? Sounds like he's rousing dissent within the populace. No! Down with animancy. Glad I'm not an animancer. And I'm also glad they're not going after ciphers. Wadwin's legacy was one warning. Heritage Hill was another. What happened at Heritage Hill? Spread the word. Together we'll drive the blight of animancy from our city. It was an animancer that clued me into that I am a watcher after all. Wonder what this Justicar has to say. The Crucible Knights weren't always soldiers. We used to be blacksmiths. Will you speak to me? Rowan's arms are crossed, and his mouth is set in a grim frown as he watches the gathered protesters. He looks ready for a fight. He sizes me up. New in town, eh? You picked an interesting time to visit Defiance Bay. All these refugees fleeing the frontier and finding the legacy no better here. It's the Animancers. Magrin scorched them, and they nest in the city like rats. You mark my word, though, us dozens are going to put a stop to it. The dozens? What are you doing out here? He gestures at the crowd, which buzzes with angry chatter, trying to get folk to see reason. We're in the midst of a crisis, and instead of purging the nefarious forces from our city, the Duke is granting Animancers dangerous liberties. What do you know about animancy? It's the study and manipulation of essence, which any sane person will tell you is the purview of the gods. The Adirans at least have the sense to outlaw it, which is the only good thing you can say about them. It's not like magic, chanting, or the soul readings those ciphers do. It's been around since ancient Ingwithan times, which is why you'll see Animancers tinkering with old Ingwithan artifacts. Again, I'm glad he's not coming after ciphers. Counter raises a fist to cough discreetly into it. Half-truths, all. But he's an enthusiastic performer, I'll give him that. He shakes his head. Trouble is, the Animaster's got no idea what half those artifacts actually do. Not that they'll admit it. Our emphatic friend is correct about one thing, at least. So tell me about this Dozens. He taps his chest. We're an organization of interested citizens who want to free Defiance Bay from the dangerous influence of Animasters and the tyranny of the aristocrats who support them. We also consider ourselves a militia of sorts, seeing as the Crucible Knights are little more than a flock of preening nobles in training these days. Just like a militia, the Dozens, except for the training and the discipline and the code of honor. His eyes gleam. And we're always looking to expand. The more people see these things our way, the better for the state of the country. You have any interest in hearing more, stop by Admus' Den sometime. The Expedition Hall. A lot of free thinkers in there. Can set straight all the nonsense the nobles and the Animasters want you to believe. Might even be some paid work there for motivated types. I'd like to know more about Defiance Bay. I wonder if he'll tell me this. Maybe I stepped too far. He gets a mischievous gleam in his eye. Aye. I bet they don't teach about the colony that troubled Hadred's handmaiden back in the good old Adder, do they? This is the capital of the Free Palatate of the Dyrwood. We started out as the capital of an Adarian colony, but we booted the Flaccid Scepter from these lands 150 years ago. Same with where I come from Riesurus. We were a colony as well from the Adarian Empire. These days we're a major port receiving trade and visitors from all over the world, but we, some of us anyway, strive to hold on to the pioneering spirit that earned us our freedom a century and a half ago. The city is divided into 5 districts: Copper Lane, First Fires, Andra's Gift, Brackenberry, and Heritage Hill. He ticks each off on a callous finger. Tell me about Copper Lane. This here is Copper Lane. He taps a scuffled boot on the cobblestones. It's primarily a market district, but you've also got the Expedition Hall directly north of here, where you can join treks into the wilds. That's also where my fellow Dozens martyrs and I tend to meet up with other concerned citizens. He points to a long domed building west and north of your position, and that's the Hall of Revealed Mysteries. Eerie place, you ask me, but they've got the biggest library in the Dyrwood. Kana laughs. Eerie indeed. It might be less so if more kith stepped inside. Perhaps we ought to visit Keldon's Atha and see just what mysteries are revealed. Tell me about Brackenberry. A noise of disgust rattles in his throat. The nobility that didn't sail back to the Adirs stayed here. Most of the families there trace their lineage back to old imperial times. Other than a lot of has-been nobility, you've got Hadret House, where Lady Webb and her spies operate, and Brackenberry Sanitarium, the main cesspit of animancy in the city. He spits on the cobblestones. I can tell this is going to take me a while to get through. We have to find this leaden key. Tell me about the First Fires. That's where the revolution started, hence the name. These days is overrun with politicians and panderers, but we'll take it back someday. That's where you'll find the Ducal Palace, the Valian Embassy, and Crucible Keep. He shakes his head. The Crucible Knights were the original freedom fighters in Defiance Bay, but now they're just strutting peacocks with their eyes on fancy titles and their heads up their asses. There's an old temple of Wodica there, too. We keep it real nice for her, he winks. That sounds like where I need to go. First Fires. Tell me about Andra's Gift. Got the name because it was a wetland that drained back in the Imperial days. Now it's a seedy district populated by sailors, common folk, more than a few thugs, but it's a fun place too if you know where to look. He winks and elbows you. Look for a place called the Salty Mass when you're there. Other than that, it's mostly warehouses and abandoned homes. Tell me about Heritage Hill. He shivers. It used to be one of the more prestigious districts in the city. Heroes of the Revolution claimed plots up there, next to the ancient Engwithan Tower and the city cemetery. Had the best views in Defiance Bay. Attracts richer types these days. A lot of Animassi patrons, he spits. He glances at the crowd and lowers his voice. You wouldn't have heard, but something happened over there a couple months ago. The authorities sealed it off, and they're keeping their mouths shut. But mark my words, Animassi's to blame. Farewell. Thanks for the information. Well, I don't really have much of an opinion on what the Animaster's doing, because I don't know what they're doing to the old Engwithan artifacts. Well, this looks like a big place. Marketplaces ahead. It may take us a while to explore everything, but it's worth seeing the city. I haven't been to a large city in years. Well, wouldn't say this is the waterfront. It's where a river flows through the city, though. It's clean. I'll give it that. Let's go across this wooden bridge. The calm waters smell faintly of refuse. So maybe that's where they sweep all their dirt into. The Goose and the Fox. Well, this is supposed to be an inn. Maybe we should stay there. I don't know about coming out at night, but wouldn't hurt to come to a nice inn and stay. We've been on the road for a little while. Except for our little stay back at my stronghold. Oh, it's cleaner than the one in Gilded Vale, I'll give it that. Tables are interesting. Like giant sections of wood taken straight up from the tree. You'll find all sorts. Everyone's a philosopher here. Really. Lively place, isn't it? Well, let me speak to the bartender.
Hail and well met.
The man behind the bar is nearly the size of an amoa. A handle protrudes from his back, and his face is set in stoic frown. He gives you a small nod. Here for a drink? There's a tiny pewter cup in front of him. He turns it in one broad hand, but doesn't drink from it. This is a lively place. It was founded in the early days of the Dyrwoodian independence by a traveling scholar named Errol of Levi. He wanted a place where kith of all backgrounds could gather and hash out the issues facing their new country. He rests an elbow on the polished wood of the bar. It didn't take long for the place to fill up. Brackenberry aristocrats argued with dock workers from the gift, while soldiers wrangled with politicians. Dyrwoodians have never been known to turn down an argument. He takes a sip from the tiny cup. What happened next? Soon, kith were coming from the farms and settlements too. He waves at the door, as if expecting a crowd to bustle in. This place got even more popular with the Valiant sailors than the salty mast, and that was the problem. He drains his cup. No matter what people say about fair-mindedness and civil debate, there's only so much people will tolerate. Errol found himself on the wrong side of an argument with the wrong Thane, and when he disappeared a few days later, some said it was the work of the Thane. He shrugs, spreading his hands over the bar as he surveys the room. But Errol knew which way the wind was blowing, if you ask me. He skipped town, hid out somewhere, hoping for rational minds to prevail in Defiance Bay. He cracks a wry grin. If only he could see it now. Tell me about yourself. Name's Bishop. Used to be a scholar of Barath. Now I run the Goose and Fox and keep the regulars in line. He shifts, and you see a warhammer strapped to his back. What more is there to tell? How'd you go from religion to taverns? The journey isn't as long as you'd think. It started with Hollowborn, and with this. He takes a black bottle from under the bar and fills the pewter cup. It was my sister's son. He takes a drink. At the beginning of Wadwin's legacy, he was one of the first. I never expected there would be so many after him. Tragedy is part of the cycle, but it's followed by rebirth. Yet every year, more parents were grieving for their Hollowborn children, and the gods were silent. So you lost your faith. He leans forward, crossing his arms in the bar. Barath promised rebirth, cycles, but the only cycle I found was this one. He taps the bar. Have a drink, have another, and another until I couldn't remember how I got home. Wake up, come back. I finally woke up one day to see my family had packed up and left. For all I know, they'd left days before and I just hadn't noticed, but they were gone, so I came here. I've cleaned up since then. Not that I've found my answers. Toss the cup back. I've just stopped asking questions. I'll order some refreshments. Well, we're out of camping supplies. Or, I think we're still full on camping supplies, actually. We could use one. Beer? Beer would be nice. A beer for each. A beer for everyone. Alright, well,
Yeah.
we could use a room.
Good day, stranger.
Could I get a room? I'll show you what I've got. A lot of nice places to stay in. Expensive, but nice. Well, I think that I'll just stay in the common room. We have the coin, I'm cheap, I guess. Very cheap. Alright, so we've rested.
Right.
If we should keep trying to talk to everybody around here. Oh, what's that thing? This Stelgaer's pelt is thick with dust and moss. The plaque reads below. The beast reads, Maiden Falls 2682. As you near, you feel vibrant history contained in the essence of this man's soul. Voices from his past seem to call out to you. Reach for the soul. You see a half-consumed ale slosh its way across the distance to his mouth, spilling across the stains of food long past. Glazed eyes glance at the brawl across the room, gaining fervor as the light extends through the room. Another ale, he murmurs to the bartender. Downing his drink and turning towards the hall, he pulls a picture from his pocket, a painting of a young child, all brown hair and green eyes, and holds it above his candle. It does not burn. Ales later, he begins to sing. The bar, a mess of broken chairs and wounded pride, and they all listen for a moment before continuing their drinks. Svef conversations. His ache is felt through the room. His sad story reminds them of their sad stories. When he finishes singing, a silence hangs in the air, palpable among the smoke and the sweat and the yeasty smell of the beer-infused exhalation. He is the first to break the silence, ordering a round of ale for the room. The general din of conversation sparks and resumes, but the mirth now is tempered with far-off memories and thoughts. Step back. Wow, this really is loud here. Errol Levi looks on enigmatically from the canvas. Interesting, so that was him. Some colorful people here. Hello. I don't need to read everybody. Some nobles and their bodyguards as well. A dragon is outlined in charcoal pencil. The thick, jagged lines and the faint smell of sulfur suggests that the artist completed the sketch in a hurry. Cliff Dragon, White March, 2685. It's quite a few hundred years ago. It's a good job. It's a good place to unwind between jobs. Sometimes I find new ones. A woman sits by herself, spinning something on the table in front of her and watching it with furious intensity. It's about the size of a coin and it wobbles over a crack in the wood with a metallic rattle. She snatches it up with one hand and slams a half-empty cup down on the table with the other. This is not a good time. You look like you can use another drink. I'll get there. She takes a long drink from her glass, just trying to calm down. I'm trying to talk myself out of something foolish. Something foolish? She says nothing for a few moments, as if hoping you'll leave. At last, she looks up at me and lamplight falls across her face. A purpling bruise is blossoming along her cheekbone. There's something I need to give to my fiancé, Pernisk. Only he doesn't seem to go anywhere without his new friends, and they're not exactly pleasant company. Who hit you? She shakes her head. I know how this looks, but you don't understand. It's not like Pernisk. It's these new friends of his. They brought out the worst in him. Tell me about those new friends. They come into our house with their dead eyes and their black teeth. I'm not a fool. I know what it means. Pernisk makes me leave when they show up, but it's obvious what they come to do. Last time they came, I told them to get out. Let them have their fun somewhere in the gift, but not under my roof. She scowls and then winces, her fingertips gently probing her bruise. Svef changes you, I guess. The Pernisk I knew wouldn't have squashed a spider. I never thought he'd... She trails off, still feeling the swollen, discolored flesh. What is Svef? I don't see the joke. She eyes you suspiciously. You really don't know? It's a shrub, I think, from out in the mountains somewhere. It has dark berries, and they treat them somehow. Make this pulpy paste. You rub it in your gums, and you're supposed to see, I don't know, amazing things. Your own soul. People who use it, that's all they do. They lay around seeing things for days. But Svef makes people calm and listless. It shouldn't make them violent. She shrugs. I don't really know. Seemed better than believing he's always been this way. Maybe I should go talk to him. Her hand rests on the table and she clenches it to a white-knuckled fist. There's nothing more to say to him. We're finished. I just want to give this back to him and have a clean break. She opens her hand and a ring clatters onto the table. It was my grandmother's. Even after this, I don't have the heart to sell it off, but if I go back there myself, I know what'll happen. I'll lose my temper and I'll probably wind up with another one of these. She points to her bruise. I'll take this ring to Pernisk then. She looks at you and nods. The house is just north of here. Just please don't hurt him. As fierce as I am, I don't want that on my conscience. Well, I can't make any promises. I really should refrain from doing things for pretty women. It's a little bit of a weakness of mine. A dwarf and an Orlan debate philosophy on the other side of the curtain. Actor and a merchant, at least by the way they're dressed. Hate to say it, but the legacy's been good for business. That's kind of horrible. Hello. Reach out for the soul. You see a mud-soaked clearing, rain falling to the ground in large drops. This man is lying on his back in the muck, his hands holding open the maw of an enormous Stalgar that stands over him, its front paws on his chest. The heavy rain falls over them, playing counterpoint to the grunts made by the opponents. Dead Stalgar litter the ground around them, and the man's body shows signs of a difficult battle. His clothing is torn, hanging in scraps in some places. Bites and scratches cover his arms and legs. A huge gash cuts across his forehead. Blood and water mixing as they run down his face and drip into the mud. It takes all the man's effort to keep the beast's jaws from clamping down. The man looks around wildly until his gaze finally lands on a large axe lying barely within arm's reach behind his head, the rain slowly covering it with grime and muddy water. He looks at the Stalgar and then back at his axe, grim determination on his face. His arms are shaking and seems he will not be able to hold the beast back for much longer. He takes a deep breath and wraps his right hand around the Stalgar's bottom jaw, then lets go with his left hand, freeing the top of his head. Its head. The Stalgar's mouth snaps shut on his right hand as his left shoots out above his head and grabs the handle of his axe. The Stalgar grinds his teeth and pulls back, trying to free himself from his grip, blood dripping from his mouth onto his face. With a grunt that quickly becomes a bellow of pain, the man pulls his right hand down, bringing the beast's head closer to him, swinging the axe around as he does. The blade of the weapon pierces the Stalgar's neck, and it yelps, its mouth popping open as if it tries to step backward off the man. Before his mangled hand can lose its grip, the man pulls and twists as hard as he can, trying to get the beast on the ground. Using the Stalgar's resistance to pull himself into a sitting position, he brings the axe down on its neck again, and one final time as its head and his hands simultaneously come free. The head flies from its grip as he thrusts his hand behind his back to brace himself as he falls. As his hand hits the ground and his full weight lands on it, a second blow of pain erupts from his mouth. Breathing heavily, he brings his now mangled hand up to assess the damage. The little finger is gone, lost somewhere in the mud. The two fingers next to it are twisted, broken, and torn, barely attached to his hand by small bits of flesh. He sighs, grabbing both dangled fingers with his left hand. He grits his teeth and pulls. Okay, that was about the worst thing I've ever read from someone. That was awful. Truly terrible. I don't know if they would mind. It's just milk, but no. I don't want to steal. That was a terrible, terrible thing I just read from him. Alright. Well, this woman needs help. In a way. Nothing too serious, but we'll do it, because I agreed to do it. And then we have a whole city to explore afterwards.